Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights, the podcast for your supply chain leader who is on the go and wants to be in the know. And now, your host, Lora Cecere.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights. My name is Lora Cecere. I'm the founder of Supply Chain Insights, and this podcast is designed for the supply chain leader who's on the go but wants to be in the know. Today, I'm going to interview Peter Lejewski as part of the series that we're doing on what I would tell my 25-year-old self. Now, I knew Peter back when he was 22, so this is a little bit intimate. So, Peter, tell the group a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thank you, Laura. And I'm thrilled to be part of your podcast, and thank you for the invitation. But as Laura mentioned, yes, I got out of college. I had earned an industrial engineering degree, and Laura and another team of more senior engineers decided that they should hire me and a number of other people. Sure enough, they immersed me into the manufacturing setting in one of the largest food plants in America at that time. I think we were 28 acres under one roof, Laura, if I remember correctly. 6 and 7 stories in some places, and really got my first taste of what it was like to work in a manufacturing environment, and have really spent most of my career either in operations or supply chain as a result of that, and have enjoyed it very much.
So one of the things I always loved about you when you were 22 was your energy and your sense of humor, right? I remember the bright red hair, running from cube to cube, getting a project done. And, when I saw you kind of progress through the ranks of manufacturing to supply chain, I was very proud. So tell the group a little bit about your progression of how you went from manufacturing to supply chain and,
Sure.
kind of how you made those choices.
Sure. Thank you. And it's actually one of the things that I have on my list. Laura asked me to put together, a list of 10 things, but having been one of my boss's bosses, it was like, okay, well, you're preparing for your boss's boss. So you didn't prepare 10, you prepared 15. So, and I even did that again today, Laura. But no, one of the things I would tell people is, look at every opportunity as a chance to grow. As I said, I had my undergraduate degree in engineering, and then I moved into supply chain really almost on a dare. Okay. I had worked, as Laura had mentioned, I'd worked for Kraft General Foods in a number of plants, and I was in headquarters doing an engineering role, and they asked me to go into purchasing. And I remember telling the person who was inviting me, why would I go into purchasing? I said, your team doesn't respond to what operations needs. All you're doing is trying to save a penny, and we're dealing with the bad materials and the productivity losses, et cetera, et cetera. And the guy sat me down and said, that's why I want you. Okay. I'm like, I got to think about it. But then, the more I thought about it, I was like, what the heck do I have to lose? And so I went into purchasing, and you want to know something? It's like, I love this world. I love this world of procurement. It's become so much bigger as we talk about supply chain. And, Laura and I have talked about the whole thing of going into customer service and managing customer service and demand and supply planning and, all types of things that touch operations and supply chain management. At one point in my career, I ran winemaking. I ran a number of wineries, and it's all these things build. And so it's okay to take a job that, I kind of convinced myself it was a lateral, okay, to take it. But it just opened up this universe to me. And I look back and I'm very thankful. The gentleman's name was Rick Studeman. He's since passed, but I'm very, very thankful that Rick invited me to join his team.
Rick was a great guy. Now, Peter, you're pretty aggressive as a young kid wanting promotions, right? And, taking a lateral must have been tough for you. But, many people coming out of school feel like they should be CEO in a couple of years. What would you tell them about, how they manage their career? What would be your advice to your 25-year-old self?
Sure. The one expression I remember, another peer of ours, Laura, I was anxious, and this gentleman said, get a cup of coffee and come into my office. And he said, and we sat down, he said, Peter, get some time. And really the message in this was, look, hey, we all think highly of you and you're doing great work and you got a lot of potential, but you know what? Getting promoted and advancing in your career is not just a matter of, changing classes every semester like we were used to in college. Okay. It's like, oh my God, I can get through this semester, right? No, it was really about, continually proving yourself for one, but also the thing that I had to look back on, and I reflect on this as I was preparing, Laura, is my boss wanted to make sure I got the experience out of that job. Because it's one thing to go in and do the job and check the boxes, but have you really learned what you need to learn to take the next step? And yes, we want to advance, but sometimes we have to look at it and realize we haven't learned that. And, another lesson I would add to this is embrace the failure. Because when you go into a new position and you're doing really well, there is an element that's certainly hard work, but there's also an element of I got lucky. Okay. And when you fail, you didn't get lucky. So you really can look at what didn't I do right? What went wrong? It's that whole analysis of variance or analysis of failure or whatever you want to call it. Different organizations give it different names, but really reflect on what do I need to do differently? And now go into that job that maybe you want to get promoted out of it, but really leverage it and make it better and make it a job everybody wants. Okay, as opposed to, yeah, I passed through there and stamped my card, but I didn't make any impact on the people, on the process, on what the output was that that department was generating. And so I really encourage people is like, don't be like me. Get some time, really learn. Those were words that have stuck with me, for the 40 years since that have gone by.
Doesn't seem possible. It's been 40 years, does it?
Oh,
Right.
geez,
Okay.
oh.
Yeah.
It goes quick.
So, if we were talking to a group of, emerging students out of a local college going into supply chain, what would be your top 4 or 5 pieces of advice that you'd really hit home on? You talked about, be open to outcomes of other jobs, embrace failure, spend time in the job. What else would you tell them?
Yeah, yeah, thanks. There's a number of things. Part of the thing, well, I put this at the top of my list is don't take things personally. Okay. And that's hard to do, especially
Oh,
when
it's so
you're,
hard to do. Yeah.
when right? When you're new to an organization or
Yeah.
you're new to a department or even if it's the same company, but you went to a different organization, right? Just because people disagree with us doesn't mean that they are against us. Okay. And so I really tell people, stay out of that swamp. It's sometimes it's like, okay, why do they disagree? What do I need to learn? And again, this is a really good chance we'll go stand in that person's shoes and understand what it's about. And perhaps you can gain that perspective. So don't take it personally. Everybody has objectives and so often we forget in the same company, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead, and right, Laura, it's like, okay, well, it's operations versus maintenance versus the engineers versus sanitation, right? It's like, no, we're on the same team, everybody. So let's stay on the same team. The other thing I think a lot of young people fail to do is I think we've all heard about the beginner's mind. Okay. When you're a beginner, or you're new to something, you feel pressure to contribute, right? You want to be part of the team. But at the same time, it's a wonderful opportunity to not have all the answers, to ask the question you really want to ask that maybe 3 months from now, it sounds really stupid. It's like, hey, you've been here 30, 90 days and you don't know that? Okay, ask it early on. This is the time to learn as opposed to proving to all of us how smart you are. Realize when a company hires you or they promote you or they bring you into a new role, they already think you're smart. Okay, so don't spend time proving how smart you are. Spend time learning, and building. Like I said, be the sponge, ask the questions, and it's a good time to get away with not knowing the answer. Okay, and a great time to learn. And so do those deep dives. Kind of parallel with that is don't try to show you're the smartest person in the room. I think this is a trap. I know early in my career, somebody pulled me aside and gave me great advice. Like, Peter, we know you're smart. Okay, just we need you to do more listening. And what they really wanted me to focus on was dig dig with the team, get more points of view on the table. And this person really helped me develop my collaboration skills, which, as we talk about supply chain, Laura, right? I mean, it's being able to collaborate with suppliers and customers and other people who sit in various nodes of the supply chain. That's where the magic happens. We can have all kinds of great reports, but if we're not talking to each other and understanding, it doesn't happen. So really build and drive those collaboration skills. And to do that is listen to everybody. Often we fall into the trap of listening to people who share the same opinion we have or share the same point of view we have. But we don't want to listen to those like, oh, that jerk, they don't know what they're talking about. And again, drop that. Really listen to what we don't know, spend some time, and especially in to younger people, I really encourage you listen to the old guard. Okay, it's Laura and I and others didn't get where we got to necessarily gracefully. Okay, we have elbow patches and torn up knees and broken ankles and other physical scars and emotional, and we're very, very happy to share those. Okay, and so you don't necessarily have to go through them. And I have a great example here because, like, sometime with the old guard, especially today with technology, and remember I was implementing a piece of software, and I'm like, how can't you see how much better this is going to make your life? Okay, but we didn't really do that right. Okay, and so people were, we went. Let's just say it took a long time to get through the change process. Well, reflecting on that, next time through, I really went down and I sat with people and I said, well, tell me about your job. What do you like? What don't you like? And then we were able to show them how the software was going to make what they like even better. And those things that they didn't like was going to remove them or make them easier. And all of a sudden, people were on board. Okay. And it's like, hey, can you help me design the process? So I think, again, there's all this pressure as young people to come out, and I've got this all perfectly framed and my I's dotted and my T's crossed and it's buttoned up and all these types of things. But we didn't talk to the people. Okay. And you've got to go get that buy-in of the people who are actually in the process, in the trench, whatever analogy that you want to use, and gain that recognition from them of, okay, I'm behind this because these are the people who make it work every day. It doesn't matter how well the process is designed if the people themselves haven't bought in. So Laura, those are some key things. I have others, but I'm sure you have some other questions you probably want me to get to instead.
I think that's great advice. One of the things I learned during the period of time I was with you, and I don't think I learned it well at that period of time, I kept relearning it, is just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean that it's a fight. It's like, I think there's such a drive to do well when you first enter an organization that, you hear disagreement and, your first reaction is, okay, let's get in there and fight, duke it out, versus listening for understanding and trying to bridge differences and make things work. And, one of the things that I loved about you, Peter, was your sense of humor. And I think that humor is such a great binding force. I would encourage people to really foster their ability to have positive humor, to, you know, kind of defuse situations through, humor, right? Like, I had a boss that used to say, you can't make this stuff up. Here's, chapter one. And, but, to be able to have fun at work, right?
Yeah,
So
no, absolutely. I think being able to laugh, and again, encourage people to laugh at yourself.
mhm,
Look, things are going to go bad. It happens. It's just real life, as you say. Okay. And failure is going to happen. But okay, once you pick up the pieces, nobody's injured, the catastrophe is under control. Okay. Sit back, go to the break room. Maybe it's, you're going out for a pop after work with somebody, but go laugh at yourself.
right.
You know what? Don't make a brain surgery unless you're a brain surgeon.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's, things get spilled, things get knocked over, things get dumped. But you know what? In the end, if we laugh at ourselves, we feel better. And when you can publicly laugh at yourself, and now here's a lesson as you want to move into a management role, when your team sees that you can laugh at yourself, they probably feel much more comfortable coming to you with bad news,
Right,
okay, or risks, or asking you for help, because now they're not fearful of, I'm going to get my backside handed to me. No,
right.
it's like, okay, all right, Laura can laugh. All right, let me go talk to Laura. Laura, you're not going to believe it. Okay, but I need your help. But let's laugh about this.
Yeah.
And maybe there'll be a punishment anyway. But nonetheless, if your team sees you can laugh at yourself, you help build your team unity, and I think that's really important.
When we were at Kraft General Foods in manufacturing and operations, we didn't use the term supply chain.
No.
And, there wasn't such a thing as warehouse management or perpetual inventory, right? I don't know if you remember Tom Mills and the big
Hmm.
warehouse, and we didn't
Oh, of
really think
course.
about
Yeah.
inventory that much, right? But over our lifetime, we've sort of had supply chain kind of roll out as a discipline, through our experience. How would you contrast the difference, that you went through kind of the stages of supply chain, and where do you see it going?
Oh gosh. First of all, if there's anybody out there who's in school or has kids in school and they don't know what to study, go study supply chain management. It is the
Absolutely.
it is the coolest career. Like, it is not the sexiest. Look, okay, but it's going to be. And if you look at, I just read something, gosh, within the last 90 days, Laura, maybe you can recall it. You're better at this than me. But organizations are now saying the CEOs of the future are going to have supply chain experience, because it is everywhere. It is everything we do. People finally realized it, and like they're like, when I talk to friends, they're like, "Oh, well, I can't get a seat at the table." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Supply chain is the table."
Right, exactly.
Everything we're talking about in a I want to launch a new product.
Right.
Okay, how much? Who are the suppliers? When are you going to roll it out? What's the profitability? What's the risk of supply? What's the risk if we fail? Okay, we're obviously talking about tariffs now, everything that we did and had to deal with during the pandemic. But supply chain touches everything. And it is absolutely fascinating, because whether you want to be an analyst, there's a ton of work to do as an analyst. You want to be an engineer solving problems, there's a ton of problems to solve. You want to be creative, okay? We need creativity. We need more creative minds, because I think it was Einstein who said, "You're right, I can't solve today's problems with yesterday's tools." Okay, we need people who are leveraging, Laura. One of the things I love about your work is to read the things that you're posting and read some of your research, and then say, wow, how do I apply that to what my world was, trying to get it implemented, and get the product where it needed to be, on time, on budget, everything else. So look, I think supply chain, you can probably tell by my enthusiasm again, right? I love it. I just think it is so cool. And I don't care whether you're dealing with food. I spent 30 years in beverage alcohol, which obviously everybody was very curious about and very neat. But you know what? I have friends who worked in hardware stores, and you think of the millions of SKUs in a hardware store, you know, and the seasonality of what they're going through in a hardware store, and how do you get it in and get it out and get it sold and minimize the risk? It's a blast. So I just think, yeah, I think if you don't know what to do, go into supply chain. This is a lifelong career, not a short window. This is a very, very long life.
Well, Peter, let's wrap it up. Anything I didn't ask you, you want to tell the
Um,
young
you know,
aspiring?
the one thing I do want to touch on, because we talked a little bit about battles, and I think this is a great lesson that sometimes people are like, I don't like my boss. My boss is too hard on me. And I just want to come back to that and say, you know what? Put yourself in your any boss's shoes. And as you become a boss, every boss wants a dream team, right? That makes us look good, and it makes our job easier. So your boss might be hard on you, okay, but your boss probably sees that you have a potential, and they're trying to help you untap it. And so look, we've all had bad bosses, and I've tell people sometimes you learn more from a bad boss than a good boss. But when your boss is being hard on you, don't blame your boss. Take that feedback and say, okay, what is inside of me? What do I need to get out that I can be better? And maybe you even want to have that conversation with the person. What do you see that I haven't unlocked? And I know Laura, you probably remember Marcia from my days at Dover. Okay, and I still have this. Okay, and Marcia gave this to me. Okay, and what it says on the back is, Peter, don't forget to find the key. Because as I went to my next assignment, she said there was something about you I wasn't able to unlock. And as you know, Marcia was no rollover, but boy, I still look back very, very fondly, as her being one of my better bosses through my career. So, it's okay. And my last thing I would say is have fun. Okay. If you're not having fun at work, and I don't mean every day, right? But if you're like been in your job a year and you're like, what am I doing here? There's a message there. Move on. Okay. It's okay to move on, right? And as we started here at the very top of the session, days are long, but years are short. Okay. And so make sure you're having fun. If you feel trapped, get out. You can't do your best work if you feel trapped. Okay. So go help yourself unleash your potential as well. So those are the things that I would say if I could go back and do this again, although I'd probably make the same mistakes again, knowing me, Laura.
I don't know. I think give yourself a hug. I think you did really well. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. That
Thanks
means
for
a lot
joining.
coming from you.
Thanks for joining the series. This is Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights. This is the first in a series of 25 interviews that we'll be doing with supply chain leaders on what could I tell my 25-year-old self. And Peter, I think you gave us some great wisdom of listen for understanding, have fun, and manage yourself. Take care. All the best, my friend.
Great to see you, Laura. Take care. Bye-bye.